The world you arrive in smells like fire and wet wool and something that hasn't been washed in a very long time. It is the dead of winter, the kind that presses itself against the longhouse walls like it wants to come inside and stay forever. The wind outside howls through the pine trees with the voice of something ancient and hungry, and the snow falls so thick and so heavy that the world beyond the door has simply ceased to exist. In here, though, in this long smoky hall, with its low timber beams and flickering hearth, something is about to happen that will change everything, though nobody knows it yet. Your mother is not having what anyone would call a pleasant evening. She is a formidable woman, broad-shouldered and sharp-eyed, a woman who once broke a man's nose for looking at her mead the wrong way, but tonight she grips a wooden spoon like a weapon and breathes through her teeth with the focused intensity of someone who has decided that the universe owes her an apology. The midwife bustles nearby, slightly unsteady on her feet, smelling of honey mead and certainty. She has done this 40 times before. She will get through it, and then you arrive. You do not cry, you roar. A sound so sharp and indignant that the hound sleeping by the fire jolts awake and scrambles under a bench. The midwife takes a step back. Your father, a man who has survived 3 raids, 2 winters without enough grain, and 1 incident with a bear that he refuses to discuss in polite company, looks at you across the dim, smoky room. He takes in your furious red face, your clenched fists, your expression of pure outrage at having been deposited, without warning, into this cold and complicated world. He says quietly, "She's going to be trouble." The others gathered in the long house, aunts, neighbours, a grandmother who smells of dried herbs and prophecy, nod slowly, not with concern, with recognition. They have seen that look before on women who mattered, on women the sagas remember. You are placed in a goat trough lined with wool, which is honestly better than it sounds. A carved wooden owl is tucked beside you, a ward against bad spirits, carved by your grandmother on a sleepless night when she felt something watching from the tree line. A spider has claimed the far corner of your trough and refuses to leave. Someone will eventually name her Hilda. Outside, the storm presses on. Inside, the fire burns low and gold. Your family moves around you, loud and warm and utterly chaotic, and somewhere between the snoring men and the sharpening of an axe, and the old dog licking your forehead with total seriousness, you close your eyes for the very first time. You have survived your first night. It will not be your last. Nobody hands you a childhood in the Viking world. You take it piece by piece with both hands, usually from something that is trying to bite you back. By the time you are 2 years old, you are already mobile in a way that makes the adults nervous. Not because you are fragile, because you are not. You move through the longhouse like a small force of weather, knocking things over, tasting things you should not taste, and looking at every sharp edge in the room with an expression of pure scientific curiosity. Your toys are whatever the world left behind. A wooden horse with 1 leg snapped off and bite marks from 3 cousins. A ball made from a pig's bladder, stitched tight and slightly lopsided, which you use for games that have no rules and always end in someone bleeding. A stick, which is somehow your most versatile possession, sword, wand, fishing rod, and disciplinary tool for the chickens, all depending on the hour. The chickens do not appreciate this. You do not care. The mud outside the longhouse is your kingdom. You share it with goats, pigs, and 2 dogs who have long since accepted you as one of their own. There are no fences designed to keep you safe. There are no surfaces designed to be gentle. Everything in your world is either sharp, heavy, flammable, or alive, and most things are several of these at once. You once swallowed a fishhook at age 3. The village gathered around and waited. When it passed, safely, dramatically, they cheered. Your grandmother said it was a sign. She did not specify of what. Games among Norse children are not gentle exercises in cooperation. They are small rehearsals for survival. Catch the chicken ends in scratches, throwing rocks for distance ends in bruises. Racing barefoot across the frozen ground ends in someone face down in the slush, which the others find enormously funny. You play all of these games. You win most of them. You lose the ones where size matters, and you remember every single name. Winter is the great teacher. When the cold comes down hard and the food stores run low, you learn what hunger feels like, not the polite hunger of a missed meal, but the deep, bone-settled hunger that makes you quiet and sharp-eyed. You learn to eat what is given and want nothing more in front of others. You learn that warmth is not a luxury. It is a strategy. You press yourself close to your brothers at night, not because you're afraid of the dark, but because shared heat keeps everyone alive until morning. By the time you are 5, you can gut a fish, start a fire, and identify which mushrooms in the forest will kill you by nightfall. You know the difference between a wound that needs binding and a wound that needs prayer. You are 5 years old, and you are only just beginning. It begins with a look, not a word, not a ceremony, not a formal declaration in front of the village elder, just a look from a woman who has seen enough of the world to recognize something in your eyes that most people have already learned to hide. She is older than your mother and younger than your grandmother, with forearms like ship rope and a scar along her jaw that she refuses to explain to anyone who hasn't earned the right to ask. Her name is Sigrid, and she does not waste her time on girls who are not worth it. You are 7 years old. The first time she watches you. You are in the middle of a fight you did not start with a boy 4 years older and a full head taller, and you are losing, but you are losing in a specific way that she recognizes. You are not panicking, you are thinking, even as his weight bears down on you and the mud soaks through your tunic, and the other children form a loose, noisy circle around you both. Your eyes are moving, calculating, looking for the thing that shifts the moment in your favor. You find it, his left knee slightly turned inward, a small weakness, and you use it without hesitation. He goes down, you stand up. You look at no one. Sigrid appears at your shoulder before the crowd has fully dispersed. She says only 3 words, "Come tomorrow, early." Then she walks away without checking to see if you will follow. You are there before dawn. What he teaches you is not what you expect. There are no glorious battle formations, no dramatic speeches about honor and Valhalla. There is footwork, endless, repetitive, humbling footwork, until moving correctly feels as natural as breathing. There is the shield, which is heavier than it looks and smarter than most people treat it. Not just a wall, but a weapon. A tool of timing and deception. There is the sex, short and efficient, for the moments when distance collapses and only instinct remains. And there is the fall, practiced over and over again, because Sigrid believes that a warrior who does not know how to fall will eventually die from it. She teaches you pain management, which is different from pain tolerance. She teaches you to breathe through the moment when everything in your body is screaming to stop, to find the small, quiet place inside that panic cannot reach. She teaches you that fear is not your enemy. Fear is information. What you do with it is the only question that matters. Some mornings she says nothing at all. You train in silence, in the grey pre-dawn light, with only the sound of your own effort and the distant call of birds in the pines. On those mornings, you understand something that no one could have told you with words. You are always going to end up here. Power in a Norse village is not something given to you. It is something you negotiate. Every sigh, niggle day with every word you choose and every silence you hold. You learn this early. The Longhouse is not just a home, it is a world entire, with its own invisible architecture of loyalty and debt. respect and rivalry, and the 1,000 small gestures that determine whether a person is someone or no one at all. Your brothers are your first teachers in this. They are loud and certain in the way that boys who have never been told to be quiet tend to be. They take up space at the table, in the conversation, in the room itself, spreading their elbows wide and their opinions wider. You watch them. You study how the older men respond to confidence, how they lean forward when a voice does not waver, how they dismiss whatever flinches. You file this information away like a blade being sharpened, one careful stroke at a time. The women of the Longhouse teach you something different and something deeper. Your aunt, the one who has buried 3 husbands with suspicious efficiency and remarkable composure, teaches you that influence rarely announces itself. It moves quietly through a room. It lives in who sits beside whom at a feast, in which name is spoken first when decisions are made, in who pours the mead and who receives it. She teaches you to read a room the way a sailor reads the sky, not for what it shows you, but for what it is about to do. The thing is where the world become. Sufficial twice a year the village gathers jarls and farmers and free women and warriors in an open field where every voice theoretically carries equal weight and practically carries the weight of whoever is standing behind it. You attend from the time you are old enough to stand without fidgeting. You listen to disputes about land and livestock, about debts unpaid and insults unaddressed, about the price of a man's honour and the cost of ignoring it. You begin to understand that law is not a wall. It is a conversation, and like all conversations, it rewards those who know when to speak and when to wait. There is a boy who makes the mistake of laughing at you during a training bout in front of the others. You do not lose your temper. You wait. 3 days later, at the thing, when he needs someone to stand as witness for a minor land claim, not a single person in that field will meet his eyes. You did not arrange this. You simply mentioned, quietly, to the right people, what had happened. The village has a long memory, and you are learning to speak its language. You are not yet a Shieldmaiden in name, but in the Longhouse, in the field, in the careful architecture of who owes what to whom, you are already becoming formidable. The longships smell like pine tar and ambition. They sit low in the dark water of the fjord, long and narrow and hungry-looking. Their dragon prows coo, titting silhouettes against a sky that has not yet decided whether it wants to be night or morning. The torches on the dock throw orange light across the faces of the warriors loading provisions, salted meat, rope, weapons wrapped in oiled cloth. And every face you see is doing the same thing yours is doing, which is pretending very hard not to be afraid. You have trained for this. 2 years of footwork and shield work and learning to fall correctly and getting back up again. Sigrid has pushed you past every wall you thought was your limit and shown you the open ground on the other side. You know the techniques. You know the formations. What nobody told you, what nobody could have told you, is what it feels like to stand on the dock in the last hour of darkness with a real sword at your hip and understand that the world you are about to enter does not care at all how well you trained. The oars hit the water before sunrise. You row in rhythm with 11 others, the cold spray coming over the bow in sheets that soak through your wool cloak within the first hour. The fjord opens into the sea, and the sea is enormous and indifferent, grey-green, and heaving, and the longship climbs each wave and descends the other side with a stomach-dropping lurch that makes 2 of the men go pale. You keep rowing, you focus on the rhythm, stroke and recover, stroke and recover. The horizon stays at and featureless for hours, then it doesn't. The coastline appears in the late afternoon light, low and green, a cluster of buildings visible from the water, smoke rising from cooking fires. A fishing village going about its evening without the faintest suspicion of what is coming across the water toward it. The raid leader raises his fist, The oars lift, the ship glides forward on momentum alone, silent now, and every person on board draws a breath and holds it like something precious, and then everything happens at once. The noise is the first thing that undoes you. Not your courage, not your training, but the sheer, overwhelming volume of it. Shouting in 2 languages, the crash of wood against wood, the terrible percussion of metal finding metal. You are on the beach with your shield up before you have consciously decided to move, your body executing what Sigrid drilled into your bones while your mind scrambles to catch up. Someone comes at you from the left, you pivot, redirect, use the shield edge the way she taught you. He goes down. You are still standing. Somewhere behind the roaring in your ears, something settles. Something clicks into place like a bolt sliding home. You are made for this. Nobody tells you about the quiet parts. The sagas are full of battle cries and dragon ships and the glorious crash of shield walls, but they leave out tea. He long silences afterward, the ones that settle over you like snow, soft and total. In the hours after the fighting stops and the world goes still, and you are left alone with everything you have seen and everything you have done, and the strange, heavy fact that you are still here when others are not. The first person you lose is a boy from your village, not a lover, something harder to name than that. A sparring partner who became a companion, who became the person you trusted most in a fight, which in the Norse world is the deepest intimacy there is. His name was Leif. He was quick and funny and terrible at rowing, and he always laughed at the wrong moments, which was infuriating and then, somehow, essential. He died on a beach in a raid that went sideways in the 3rd year of your Shieldmaiden life, and you carried him back to the ship yourself because you could not leave him in foreign sand. You do not weep at his funeral pyre. You stand straight and watch the fire take him, and you say his name once, clearly, into the smoke, so that whatever is listening knows he is coming. You weep later, alone in the dark, which is the Viking way, not because grief is shameful, but because it is yours, and you do not owe it to anyone as a performance. Love, when it finds you sideways. It is not a Jarl who courts you with silver and status. It is a shipwright, quiet and broad, and smelling permanently of wood shavings, who never once asks you to be smaller than you are. He watches you with the particular attention of someone who finds you genuinely interesting, which turns out to be more disarming than any compliment about your beauty or your blade work. You do not know what to do with a person who simply wants you to stay. You almost leave twice out of sheer unfamiliarity with the feeling. You stay. There are years of warmth in it, years of coming home to firelight and a person who asks about your day and means it. Years of learning that strength is not diminished by softness, that you can be both the woman who stood in a shield wall and the woman who falls asleep holding someone's hand. Sigrid told you once, near the end of her life, but the bravest thing she ever did was let someone know her completely. You understood it then only in theory, now you understand it in your bones. But the sword never truly rests. Loss has a way of returning, season after season, collecting names, and each name you carry makes you heavier and harder and somehow, inexplicably, more alive. You are old now by Viking standards, which means you have outlived the odds so comprehensively that the village has stopped being surprised and started being quietly awed. Your hair has gone the colour of winter birch, pale and stark and somehow more striking than it ever was before, or the scar along your forearm has faded to a thin silver line that catches the firelight on certain evenings, and the younger warriors sometimes stare at it when they think you are not looking. You always are. You sit at the head of the table now, not because anyone formally gave you that seat, because one day you sat down in it and nobody said a word. And that is how authority actually works in a world that respects strength above ceremony. The children come to you in the evenings. They arrange themselves at your feet with the serious, wide-eyed attention of people who understand, instinctively, that they are in the presence of something worth listening to. They want the stories of raids and battles and far coastlines glimpsed through sea spray at dawn. You give them those stories. But you also give them the other ones, the ones about Leif, about the shipwright's warm hands, about Sigrid in the grey pre-dawn light teaching you to fall correctly, about the fishhook you swallowed at 3, and the spider named Hilda who lived in your goat trough crib, about the boy whose knee you used against him in the mud, while a woman with a scarred jaw watched from the edge of the crowd and saw something worth her time. You tell them that a Shieldmaiden is not made in a single moment of glory. She is made in 10,000 ordinary moments that nobody witnesses in the choice to get back. Up when the ground is cold and the outcome is uncertain, in the decision to stay when leaving would be easier, in the quiet work of becoming someone whose presence in a room changes the quality of the air. The scolds have already begun composing. You have heard fragments carried back to you by traders and travellers from villages up and down the coast. Your name appears in their verses alongside women who became legend: Lagertha, Hervor, the unnamed warrior buried with her weapons and her horse, discovered centuries later by people who will not be born for 1,000 years. You are in that lineage now. You earned your place in it, one cold morning at a time, when your time comes, and you face it the way you have faced everything, with your eyes open and your breathing steady. The pyre they build for you is the tallest the village has ever raised. They place your sword beside you, your shield, the carved wooden owl from your very first night, and somewhere in the smoke that rises into the Norse sky, unhurried and vast, your story keeps going. It always does.